Okay, all you Batman fans out there, you are listening to the Night of the Batman, and this is Jim Starlin, who had a little bit to do with Batman along the way. Have a good one.
Hey guys, I'm Alex.
I'm Amanda, and this is Night of the Batman. We have some special guests on today.
Yep.
Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, hey, I am Case from the Men of Steel podcast, and we are joined by my co-host.
Hey, J Mike, also from the Man of Steel podcast. Woo!
Yeah,
Nice.
we're excited to be here. We have a Superman show, and today we're doing a little bit of a world's finest, right?
Yeah. Definitely. We are reviewing is it Batman Superman or Superman Batman?
E- Everything I see says Superman Batman.
Gotcha. Cool. So we're doing Superman, Batman, Public Enemies, and this was one of my first comics I read. Looking at the art style, I can definitely see why, like Ed McGuinness, like why that appealed to me. It's very animated series-esque, I feel like in some ways. But yeah, it's very much like I would describe this. Jeff Loeb writes a lot of stuff. I would describe this more as like a blockbuster type feel. Would you guys agree with like the vibes of this comic?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, this is coming right off of Jeff Loeb and Ed McGuinness having the Superman book right before this period, which was done as this like relaunch after the Triangle era, which was like the 90s era for Superman books. And so it's like this big bombastic, high action kind of concept. And then when they did Superman Batman, it was even more so. Like we talked about this about five years ago on our Superman show. And at the time, I made a comparison between it and a Michael Bay movie.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
So we're very much in sync in terms of the thought process.
Yeah. There's also, I guess I'll just get into a brief summary before I go further into this. So, if I want to strip it down to the basic stuff, basically, Batman at the beginning thinks that John Corbin might have killed his parents, and John Corbin's trying to get his body back. They end up
John Corbin's Metallo, for those of you who don't know.
Yeah, sorry, I probably should have said that. John Corbin is Metallo, but so they end up under the sewer because they have to get out because he buries them alive, and basically wants to get back there. They find out that there's this asteroid that's coming to Earth that Lex crazily is trying to say is somehow linked to Superman being there, like it's attracting like the asteroids coming there like a magnet to him, which makes no sense. But so like that's the whole thing. And then like he gives like a reward for anyone who could capture both him and Batman, basically. And then like, we have some heroes that are allied with Lex Luthor that are trying to bring him in with like two spies. We have Power Girl and Katana who are kind of like secretly on their side. But yeah, and then towards the end, Hero, who's like a toy man. I don't know if he's been in. Has he been? Was he introduced in this version of Toy Man, like this kind of teenage genius version?
I was thinking about that. I actually I didn't stop to check, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was showing up first in the Batman or pardon me, in the Superman book that Loeb and McGinnis was doing beforehand, but I'm actually checking right now.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so he showed up first in the Superman book, like a year or so before this comic came out.
Gotcha. And then also, I forgot to mention this. This is one of the differences, but like, uh, future Superman shows up and is trying to stop them from, I guess, doing their course of action with the meteor because at one point, I think they're supposed to go up and stop it with the giant Superman composite thing. And then Captain Atom decides to be the sacrificial lamb and go up there and destroy it himself. There's some other stuff, some weird stuff. Amanda Waller and Lex kiss, which is
Yeah,
weird.
yeah.
Yeah.
She finds it
Kind of
weird
weird.
too, for the record. She finds it weird
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
I remember as a kid just like flipping through and I'm being like, what is this? And
Oh,
then
Lex is on a mixture of like Bane juice and kryptonite.
Don't ever call it bacon juice again. That sounds really gross.
What's the technical name
It's
for it?
Venom.
Venom, yes.
I'm sorry, Venom can only provide just Spider-Man villains.
I mean, we knew that what you meant when you said Bane juice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just giving her a hard time. But yeah, so there's also like this book is really anyway, I'm getting ahead. I'll go back to that later. But so they at one point help me out here. Lex
Okay.
like they go back. Or you want to take over this
Well, I
part then?
usually do the
Okay, yeah, you can finish
Okay.
out this part because I
Okay.
get a little
So
hazy at the end.
so they have, fought against a bunch of villains. They fought against a group of superheroes. They fought against specifically Captain Marvel and Hawkman. Um, and Batman and Superman, they're Batman and Superman. So like they obviously come out on top. Um,
Castling.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's a chess term for those of you who don't know.
Yeah.
Where you switch the place of Rook and the King. I think it might be the Rook and the Knight. I don't know. I don't play
It's the
chess.
Rook and the King. Yeah.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. To make all overcome with space, they end up in Japan at Hero's Lab, and he reveals this like massive. It's like a rocket,
Well,
but it's
yeah.
shaped like a combination of Batman and Superman.
Well,
Which,
I already said that earlier. I was just talking about the scene in the White House with your boy,
my
and yeah, she's
Okay,
really into Nightwing.
sorry. He's the best DC character. Okay, yeah. So we're gonna backpedal. Before they go to Hero, they end up fighting Hawkman and Captain Marvel, as I said. They beat them and they steal their costumes and they go to the White House because apparently Superman and Batman were caught, which means that all of the Superman kids and the Bat fam, kind of go to like rescue Superman and Batman. So you get these really nice scenes of just the teamwork aspect, which any of our listeners know that I am not an action girly. I think action is boring, but I love like team building and like almost like slice of life stuff. So like this was really nice. So anyway, they obviously you think that they're gonna win because you have somebody saving Superboy and I don't who's the girl?
It's like Superwoman, right? Like I wasn't really
It's
familiar with
Sirel.
her.
It is a version of Supergirl that existed only briefly in this period of comics. So briefly that by the next arc in this book would be the introduction of the Kara Zor-El to the like post-crisis continuity. But nutshell, it's a fake out of a potential Lois and Clark child from the future, but it turns out actually to be a plot from Brainiac.
Okay.
Comics, everyone.
Comics.
They're weird.
So
Yeah.
somebody saving them, and then you've got Batgirl, not Barbara Gordon Batgirl because she's Oracle in this, but I just forgot her name.
Cassidy.
Cassidy, yeah.
Cassandra, sorry.
Cassandra Cain.
Yeah.
you've
Promise I'm a
got,
Batman fan.
You've got Tim Drake Robin, you have Nightwing, and you have I'm forgetting somebody.
There
Who am
was
I
the
forgetting?
yeah, there
There's
was
Natasha Irons in a steel
Yeah.
armor,
Yes,
and then
it's-
Huntress.
Huntress.
I
I didn't
Okay.
recognize
And Crypto,
them.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so they're the Bat Fam is basically in the Oval Office threatening Lex. He has them all nerve gassed, and my boy still fights him, and it's beautiful until he loses. Then Batman and Superman show up, overpower Lex. Lex freaks out. Oh my God, what does happen?
He
I-
puts the suit on at
Thank
some
you. Yeah.
point. and,
They
yeah.
Anyway, so Batman doesn't stop Superman from killing Lex. I usually have the book in front of me so I can thumb through
We
and
couldn't find the
summarize.
physical copy this time, so
Anyway, so
had to go digital.
God, my brain's not working. Anyway, so Lex gets a suit after they have saved their kids and left and are in Japan. So they're in Japan getting ready to figure out who's going to fly the big mech thing. And then Captain Adam. It's Captain Adam.
Yeah, Captain Adam.
Shows up.
Yeah, like I said earlier.
Shows up, beats up Superman, flies it, and then Superman and Lex are fighting on Earth while Captain Adam is flying to destroy the asteroid, which I don't think we said before is like a piece of Krypton, and so that's why they're saying it's connected to Superman.
Yeah, good point.
And it's like radioactive, bad juju. So, long story short, Clark beats Lex, big shocker, and the Atom destroys the meteor, and all is good in the world. They part ways as buddy, and then you realize that Lex is not dead, so he's still out there, and kind of haunting them. So
Yeah, he
with
mentions like a crisis. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
yeah. So with the summary done, let's kind of dive in and like we can pick apart the things we like, the things we don't like, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Who would like to go first? You.
They can go first, guess.
Yes.
Go
Okay,
first.
go. I'm so sorry.
J Mike, why don't you start since this was actually one that you brought to the show in the first place?
Oh, this is one of my favorite comics. Like, I
Nice.
first found out about this because I'd seen I thought this was a standalone movie. I never knew there was a comic associated with this. So when I found out, I was like, holy crap, this is amazing. Then I actually saw the differences between the two. For me, I personally prefer the movie more.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I prefer the movie more. I know, like I tread the line between both because the comic gives a little bit more backstory
Mhm.
than the movie does. The movie just like leaves things as they are to keep going with the pace that it's on. Like one of the prime examples is that when the whole switch between Batman and Superman and Captain Marvel and Hawkman happens,
Mhm.
you don't like it's the abrupt switch and then they show up at the White House. You don't know what happens. In the
Mhm.
comic, it tells you that like they let their guard down and then they beat them up again. Because yeah, it's stuff like that happens. But I think where else did it happen like that? The whole Supergirl and is it Katana?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah. You know, in the book, you see a lot more happen with Katana.
Yeah.
Because that like after the big fight, after like the big fight with Mongrel and Grundy and everything, Katana is still there in the movie. She's just unconscious. In the comic, she teleports away with Batman via the JLA transporter, and
Mhm.
Superman flies off with us. I want to say Supergirl. I know it's not Supergirl. I know it's Power Girl.
Power Girl.
But it's
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
she's
just
got the boob window. So she's
yeah.
Power Girl.
Yeah, they
yeah.
make sure you know about that in this.
Well, it's little details like that give a lot more backstory than like I guess they were running out of time in the movie, and they just
Mhm.
had to keep the pace going. Well, yeah,
Yeah,
I
it's
prefer
interesting.
the movie, the Michael Bay explosion movie that makes everything so awesome with their giant chins that look like they're a tick. Okay, they have
Yeah.
like those giant tick
Oh yeah,
chins.
especially Captain Adam and Major
Yeah, it's like
Force.
it's it's super visible, and it's like, hi, I'm Captain Adam. And like, wow, they really pronounced chins.
It's like the Crimson Chin or something, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you go,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Jace.
J Mike, I think that I'm with you that the movie is more concise. There's so much of like specifically what was this 2003
Yeah,
like comics just bleeding in the
Yeah.
Batman Superman or Superman Batman, pardon me. The actual comics. Like I think like you have to be like, oh right, this is what the JSA looks like. And oh right, Sorrel is the thing that we have to care about in this book. And like oh right, like here's the super family and here's what Superboy currently looks like and here's what Huntress is and you have like all of these characters in there and there's just all this stuff and then you have like the future Superman who is not the Kingdom Come Superman but looks like the Kingdom Come
yeah,
Superman and has this whole situation with him like sitting
Huh.
on Metron's throne at the end of
exactly.
time. It like there's a lot of stuff going on in the comic, and I think that the comic doesn't have the plot to merit the length that it runs. I think that it runs about 6 issues and probably should be about four.
Yeah,
And and I think that's because it was written for the trade, and like this was an era when a lot of comics were written for the trade. So I think it's decompressed in a way that is like, well, that's no fun. And there are things in it that are still really rushed. Like the supervillain fight is like one page in the
yeah.
comic.
Yeah.
God.
but the movie explores more of these things, and like now that said, the movie has to deal with things like they have to set up why Lex Luthor is president, which in the comics was just the thing that was going on at the time.
Mhm.
This is the end of a long running arc at that point, versus we have to do all of this extremely prescient conversation about the shape of the world,
What?
where it's just like, oh my God, well, there are riots and like things are going out of control and
Yeah.
and sorry.
Well, I will say, I think that's probably because I noticed that too. And there was also, I guess we're going to go into the movie for a second. There was some stuff where, like, I was just like, yeah, they were really trying to justify that PG-13 rating at some point. They have like that talk show host thing at the beginning
Oh,
where he's talking
Right.
Jon
about like
Stewart.
23% of people like to be basically like, and he makes some vague reference to like it's bleeped out, but he's talking about like somebody like he gets stuck up the ass with like a hot poker or something like that.
Language.
What? This is explicit. We label these episodes explicit. We're good,
I
but
was going to ask actually because
yeah, yeah,
I swear like a sailor.
yeah,
I
yeah.
have a
You're
potty
good.
mouth, so I've been trying to
Okay.
be good so far.
I hardcore disagree with both of you, and this might just be
Wait,
the
hold on, I wasn't done.
oh, okay.
Yeah. So, what I was saying is that like when I was younger, I was very much more like this has to be a certain way. Like, like if the book is like this, the book has to be I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Percy Jackson series or if
Yeah.
you guys are fans of that.
Vaguely, yeah.
So, when that movie came out, I was really hardcore into The Lightning Thief and that whole book series. And so me and my friend, this is high school, mind you, got so angry about like this adaptation that we were going to go out and make our own version that was going to be like basically like 100% like every single page and like everything from the book. So I was very much like it has to be like a 100% faithful. And like I think at the time I was watching it and wanting it to be like the comic, even though, yeah, reading the comic, it's almost impenetrable. Like I remember reading it and not having any knowledge back in the day and being like, well, this doesn't really make much sense, but I know who Superman and Batman are, so I'll just like power through this. And like the Superman, like you mentioned, that's not Kingdom Come Superman, but looks like him. I just thought that was Kingdom Come Superman because I had read that at the time. And so like that's really weird that like it's not
Yeah. Yeah,
Superman.
it seems to be just like, well, that's the popular look for future Superman,
Yeah.
but the timeline seems to be related to this meteor situation, not anything
Mhm.
related to Kingdom Come. So it's just a thing that's going on in the background. Like, to be clear, I think that there are a lot of strengths with the comic that the movie lacks. Like I
Yes.
said, the movie is trying to catch up with the fact that the comic is part of sequential media with like all of this like story that's going on with it all, and it has the benefit of Ed McGuinness's art, and like that, like the movie can't compete with just how good the comic looks. Like the like
Yeah.
I have several just in my reread today. Like I took several screenshots where I'm like, well, that's going to be the background to something at some point. Like I'm gonna use this panel in something because it's so cool. Like his art is so good, and this is when he's really blowing up as an artist. Like he had done some stuff prior to this. Like he had done the Superman run just before this. He had before that done Mr. Majestic. But right after this, he would do the Hulk run where he introduces the Red Hulk, and he would go on to be doing the Avengers more recently. Like, he is a huge artist, and this is very early in his ascendancy as this artist known for these over the top physique characters that uh, have such an like this bombastic feel to them, while at the same time being familiar to fans of the animated series. Like he has a lot of like homages to the animated series design in how he does things. I remember reading an article that he wrote for like Wizard magazine where he was talking about how he picked up from the animated series using like mostly black for the trunks and having like a streak of color that would to indicate it, so that it would like have this sort of like satiny effect to it
Mhm.
all. And I'm like, oh, cool, cool. Like he really like thinks about these things. And so his art is so compelling for this whole thing. So there's certainly that, like, that 100% is there. And there is the space to breathe in certain aspects of it, but both the movie and the comic are a gauntlet. like they are like we have to deal with this fight and this fight and this fight and this fight and this fight until we finally get to the stakes altering fight, which is the fight with Captain Marvel and with Hawkman, because that allows them to engage in subterfuge afterwards in terms of like infiltrating Luthor's facilities. So like up until that fight, it's just more fights. It's like Final Fight or like Streets of Rage or like one of those like beat 'em up kind of games, but with superheroes. And like I'm here for that in moments. And looking back on the book, I'm very nostalgic for this.
Mhm.
But at the same time, like if you're looking for like it's again, we said it's that popcorn movie kind of thing, and I think that the
Mhm.
comic does a really good job of being that. It was really inviting to fans, but it's just there's just a lot of stuff going on in it.
Yeah.
Like that's all.
And
Okay.
oh,
Oh,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah. So I do prefer the comic, and I think it's because I like the writing style. I like the parallel internal monologues,
That's
and I
great. I
think,
love
Yes,
that
that's
yeah.
aspect.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that having that, and I think had they broached the movie sort of with a similar, like more cinematic, more dramatic effect. I don't like action. Okay? Like I think fight scenes are boring. I was bored during the movie because it was just a lot of fight scenes. There was not enough dialogue, there was not enough banter to keep me entertained. Um, and I think that's why Alex likes having me on because I tend to be very contrarian with things like that. Like
Well,
I think action's boring. You know what's gonna happen. You know that they're gonna win. They're superheroes. So give me banter. Give me something that's gonna like, I don't know, give me the warm fuzzies.
well, yeah. The
Oh,
reason that I like having you on is because like unlike me or like other people that are fans, you are a fan, but you do, like you kind of said, have like you very much like it's hard to predict like what you're gonna like and what you're gonna dislike usually, which makes it interesting. For me, I'm pretty much happy with like most things. I can wade through like something if there's like that little nugget of like, oh, okay, cool. This is like a cool moment. And like I'm a Batman fan, so like pretty much almost anything I'll watch. I've even watched the filmation stuff a little bit. I got the Blu-rays recently, so like yeah,
yeah. But I think that,
tolerance is higher.
and like I know like y'all were saying you have to really understand the comics to have like an access to know who everybody is, but even like not knowing who everybody is or having like a baseline level, I think that including like their like inner teams made it made them more human. And I think like that's part of like a lying theme, like underlying theme is that like while like it's about their friendship and ultimately the fact that like Clark is probably the most human of all of them, even though he's like a Kryptonian, and that even though like Batman is like Batman, he still has so much trauma and so much that grounds him. And I think that without having those elements, you kind of lose that and you kind of get lost in like, I don't know, the splendor of it all. And just, I think that the elements that they took out and then the ones that they added in instead, like all of the setup could have been done with like one headline, Lex Luthor elected president. One headline. That's all you needed. Like a 5 second shot of like a headline running across like a news station. I I don't know. And then I feel like they made arbitrary changes just to alter the plot and make the movie move faster. And
It's
I
only
understand.
67 minutes to be fair,
That's
but
what I was
yeah.
gonna say. I understand that like they wanted it to be very fast paced. But I think that in making something so fast paced, you lose a lot of the heart of the story. Okay, that's all I have.
No, no, and that I think is totally fair. Like I said, the comic is decompressed in ways that are beneficial to it, but it also has like things that I think just like kind of go nowhere. Like the John or the Corbin being the potential killer of Batman's
Yeah.
parents,
Yeah.
I think is kind of an like a MacGuffin put in there to sort of bring Batman into the story in a way that isn't really necessary and doesn't have a payoff at the end because he's sort of like, oh. Well, it was obviously a plan from Luthor. Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
And like so those are like plot elements that where it's like, oh, it's nice to have the more concise, like, oh, Metallo is just the Secret Service bodyguard to Luthor
Yeah.
in this particular confrontation. And Batman shows up because there's a fight with Superman and Batman is checking on his buddy. Like that all, like those like
Yeah.
those moments to expedite things, I think work really well. Um And like I said, I think that the future Superman stuff is just a lot to sort of explain and is kind of
Yeah.
head scratching as it is. So those are the areas where I'm like, oh, it's good that we pared those down. But there are other areas where like I think that the characterization for some of the particularly Power Girl, I think is a little bit off in the animated movie. I think that she
Mhm.
is much more very demure, very very mindful, like which which is weird. I mean, so we do need to note that the cast for the animated movie is amazing. Like it, in addition to so many returning vets from the animated series, like from the
Mhm.
DD-verse, like in this case, it's Allison Mack who is the voice of Power Girl,
Yeah.
which is weird
Well,
knowing
yeah,
about
yeah.
knowing about the life
Yeah.
trajectory of Allison Mack.
Yeah.
But like the she doesn't play Power Girl in this in the Power Girl like badass bitch kind of way. She's actually like kind of soft and being like, oh, like, well, what are we gonna do? He's the president, but he does make my skin crawl. Meanwhile, in the comics, she's written as being like, he makes my skin crawl.
Yeah.
They gave her like doe eyes and like in this movie too, where she just
Right.
constantly, yeah, looks like a deer in headlights sometimes. But I have a question. It's like a continuity question because I know like you're really like you always say on your show that you're really into continuity. There's like a side tangent moment that I've always wondered about where like Superman's just like, so you allergic to kryptonite? Basically, like asking like Power Girl, and he's like, I'm
Oh
always
yeah, so
confused about her.
yeah, so this is an era where they were redefining what Power Girl's deal was. So, Power Girl initially was the Supergirl of Earth 2, which was the reality of like the Justice Society, the Golden Age
Mhm.
characters. And she
Mhm.
specifically was just more grown up and more mature and like uh feistier than like the Supergirl of Earth 1. And she was really popular. So when the Crisis on Infinite Earths happened and they tried to like condense all the continuities, they were like, we'll preserve this character. They also preserved Huntress, but Huntress requires even well different retcons to make her work because she used to be the daughter of Batman and Catwoman, and then they made that not the case. But in the case of Power Girl, they were like, all right, well, what do we do? Because she can't be Supergirl. We don't like we're not allowing any Kryptonians at all. And so they decided, like, well, what if she just thought she was Kryptonian, but she's actually Atlantean and her powers are magic? And so that was her status quo power set at the time, or rather her origin. And she had like some incident where she was injured and her powers were reduced by half. So she wasn't quite in the same league as Superman at this point. And then they kind of like slowly etched up. But to try to explain, like, well, she has to have like some kind of weakness. She had a weakness to artificial things. So like artificial sweeteners was like a weakness for her specifically. Yeah, really
Just
Oh
weird.
spilled
no,
Diet
Yeah,
Pepsi
Diet
out of
Coke.
exactly,
My one
exactly.
weakness.
That's hilarious.
So that was her whole shtick, and this is right before Infinite Crisis. In fact, that's the thing that they refer to at the end of this book, where like where Luthor says a crisis is coming. It's referring to Infinite Crisis, where they would restore the canonicity of Power Girl being the Earth 2 Supergirl. And they would reintroduce the DC multiverse. But at this point, they knew they were doing that. And so they're trying to like bring her back into the fold of being part of the Superman world, part of the Superman mythos, uh, like part of the super family, but still dealing with the fact that technically she's more connected to Aquaman at this point, which is just sort of weird.
That is weird.
the blonde hair matches.
But yeah. The like the other thing too is like w watching this movie. I do get why they streamlined a lot of it, but still also they do try to line it up with the comic in like weird ways. Like there's a part where like Superman meets up with Lex and then randomly like they get knocked into a graveyard just so they can have that whole scene. Like there's a lot of like bending over backwards to try to still make it kind of line up with the book and but also kind of not like it's vague with like because in the book it's like they go almost across the whole globe it feels like but in this it's like they maybe kind of do but they don't really address it like it seems the scope is a lot smaller. What's up?
Why would Clark meet Lex in Gotham?
Is it in Gotham? I
Yeah,
was
it
trying to
had to be
figure
in
that out in the
Gotham.
Right.
movie.
Yeah,
It
that's
had to
why
be in
Batman's able to
Gotham.
show up so quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I don't know. I overthink things. You're probably not supposed to think that much when you're watching like
Metallo was more sympathetic in the comic though, with the whole look, I don't even want to fight here, guys. I just want my basically my human body. Like, I'll
Right.
leave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God, this is such a weird era of Metallo too, when he's like a shapeshifter that can like absorb machines.
Yeah.
Wait, what? I thought
Yeah,
that
that's
he
why
just
his like powers are like moving, like like his body like keeps reconfiguring and stuff. So this is after he had sold his soul to the devil Neuron, in exchange for
What?
greater power, and so that power was him having more of a T1000 instead of a T800 style power set,
Huh.
if you will.
That's bizarre. Like the early 2000s, man, between you got Metallo over here making deals with devils, you got Spider-Man doing the same thing in
Yeah,
his
doing
comics. It was the era for it, I guess.
a lot of deals with the devil at the time.
Yeah. None of them popular, really.
No.
Right. And then the Flash did a similar one, but with the Spectre.
Really?
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Comics, everybody.
Yeah, I will say there was one point of the comics that I wish they'd put in the movie because a lot of those plot points don't go anywhere, and
Mhm.
it's the whole dark side factor,
Yeah.
where like you don't realize the dark side is a part of this entire story unless you read the comic.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because
And
like
that would
that's
tie it in better within the sequel, which they even called
yeah,
Superman Batman
Apocalypse,
Apocalypse.
Apocalypse War. Yeah.
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 Because that's
Huh.
where they get all the boom tube technology. That's where Lex gets his suit stuff from. That's where he gets the quote unquote Bane juice and the and the Kryptonian serum and stuff from. And that's why you find
Yeah.
out the meteor is heading towards Earth because Darkseid is in it that way. And you're like, that makes a lot more sense now.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. But like you're like, oh, Darkseid. Cool.
Yeah. Do they explain it in the movie? I know that there's like the missiles, but it seems like almost they teleport, but they don't really explain that from my
Nope,
memory.
they don't talk about Darkseid. He's not in this
They
movie.
just fire the missiles off from Earth. They don't address how they
Yeah.
get that far out into space before it all, would cause the thing to break apart and
Mhm.
crash onto Earth anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Also,
they definitely removed the dark side plot
also
completely.
they talk more about the metallo, the metal itself,
Mhm.
and that's
Okay.
how the ship is able to get towards the
Mhm.
meteor without breaking apart, and then that ties it back to the metallo from the beginning of the movie because what is it? How does it go? Like his Toyman's grandfather or great grandfather came up with the metal that makes up
Yeah.
metallo, and then Toyman wants it back because it belongs to his
Mhm.
grandfather. I
Yep.
forget how that goes. Comics, it's weird, but that's
Yeah.
kind of how they tie it back to each other.
This
Yeah.
book is
Yeah.
also, how do I say this? This book is also weirdly horny for Power Girl. I don't know if you guys
Oh
picked up
yeah,
on
oh
that
yeah.
Yeah,
too.
yeah,
The
Yeah.
book
yeah.
especially, the movie they tone it down a little bit, but
Mhm.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean it
It's comics written for
it's
teenage
it
boys.
right, it's
Early
2000s comics
2000s.
like yeah, like it's coming off the 90s where the 90s that was like the type of joke that they made like just all over the
This
place.
is before
I've
we
seen
sexualize Nightwing.
I've seen Jim Balance Catwoman design, so I know what to expect
Yeah.
in like early 90s. There's also a weird thing where they have like a Twin Towers kind of parallel with like doesn't Lex have like two towers in this that go down at the end or something like that?
Oh,
The Lex building.
the boom tube explosion thing.
Yeah, that was kind
Above
of
Lex building.
weird.
And that's
I
when
don't
you
know.
find out about Darkseid.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a little weird. But yeah, like this is definitely you can tell what's up.
I want you to hand me that without like
Hand you
Also,
what? Okay.
also there's the whole subplot where but you learn at the end that Lex tried to like he tried to like expand his empire into Gotham, and
Mhm.
then Bruce
Mhm.
blocked it, and
Yeah.
then Lex went after Bruce.
Mhm.
So now they have beef towards each other. But then like Bruce bankrupted Lex somehow.
Yeah, because Bruce has more money than Lex.
Yeah, like Bruce no one ever talks about it, but Bruce has way more money than Lex.
Mhm.
But then
Yeah.
like Bruce got Lex's like, second in command to like sell out the entire company and get rid of everything.
Mhm.
I was like, that would have been great to see in the movie as like your little hee haw ha ha gaff and laugh moment. But yeah, nothing really happens. And then
Yeah,
he stabs Bruce.
I would have liked
Yeah.
to see a little bit more of that. At the time when this comic came out, I was disappointed with the what felt like a very sudden end to the Lex Luthor as president arc that had been going
Mhm.
on for a couple of years at that point.
Yeah.
It felt like we were losing what was like a really interesting dynamic for this big spectacle kind of like confrontation. Um, so I would have liked a little bit more of that, like seeing the Bruce Wayne deal, being the better businessman and like wiping out the like Lex Luthor's like funds. Which, side note, we have to bring this up, which like if you'll allow me to just go
Yeah.
lefty as hell for a moment here.
Go ahead.
Lex Luthor had his had all of his companies in a trust because he wouldn't violate the emoluments clause, a thing that just a couple of years later, or rather, like a couple of years later, like who the fuck cares? Who cares anymore? Like,
I, what do you think about like Clark's issues with like speaking out about politics? Specifically like Superman's issues with speaking out about politics. I think it's kind of weird because I feel like if you have that much power and you know that like you can use your influence for good, like not doing so is irresponsible.
I
Well,
think that it is a perspective coming from a period when we were a little bit more doe-eyed and optimistic about things.
yes.
I mean,
Well,
there's a point there's a line that I had to write down that's in the movie, and the movie is weirder that it has this bit in there where Power Girl says like it's not like there's any wars or anything, and I'm like, what world are we in where
Yeah.
where that's eliminated? And I could understand that more from when the comic was written because it's fairly recent after 9/11, and like being in this forever war didn't feel like a forever war yet.
mhm,
Versus when the movie comes out, what, 6 years later, and it's
Mhm.
like, oh, we're still in this forever war because it's a forever war. Like,
Yeah.
mhm.
you know, it just feels like that there's a disconnect from the realities of things, and certainly now in 2024, the perspective of, well, I have a following and a power of action. Why shouldn't I? Or thinking that you should refrain from acting upon it is uh, is limited. It's a perspective that doesn't work anymore
Mhm.
uh, because the real world Lex Luthor became president, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
more people should have spoken out.
Mhm.
Oh, he wishes he was Lex Luthor, bro.
I know, because here's the biggest thing about it. Like Lex Luthor was actually a good president because he stopped all these problems that happened before he became president, as opposed to stepping in and causing all the damn problems.
I had to, it took everything in me not to, whenever Lex was setting the missiles up to destroy a meteor, not to draw a parallel to Trump talking about, oh, he's like hurricanes, let's just throw some fucking missiles in it or something like he said that
Exactly.
one
Right.
time. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Lex Luthor would be a much better president, even
Well,
if he's making deals with Darkseid.
well, listen, that's
Yeah.
because Lex Luthor is actually a good businessman.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That is unfortunately true.
Yeah.
Because yeah, even though those business deals are gonna come back to bite everyone in the ass, he's still a better businessman.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I can't believe that they so we were watching and we were waiting for it's interesting what they choose to include in the movie. So like there's obviously that like we were I was waiting for it. She wasn't waiting for the weird kiss thing between Amanda
Oh
Oh,
Waller and Lex, but I'm like, you cut so many things. Why did you leave this in? It was weird in the comic. You didn't even need it. Like, why?
well, I mean, at that point, I'm pretty sure they're trying to say that he's completely off his rocker at that point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he
Like,
demonstrates
like
his
the
insanity.
venom and the kryptonite have kind of like ruined his brain,
Yeah.
along with whatever Darkseid's doing to him behind the scenes that we just don't
Mhm.
see.
Mhm.
So, it was weird. I mean, I'm not gonna say it wasn't weird. I mean, it was a very weird thing because she's like,
Yeah.
oh,
I like in the thing, like Lex kissing her made her a heroic character, and she actually said, "Nah, this is too far." Like after that kiss, like let me fix everything.
Hate her so much. I don't think I would hate her. If her name was different, I don't think I would have the animosity I have towards her. But like,
But because she's Amanda.
yes,
Yeah, yeah.
yes. Ugh.
But yeah, it's random as hell though, by the way, that she's like working with the president. I guess it makes sense, but like I remember at the time I didn't know who Amanda Waller was when I read this way back in the day. And so I was just like, who's this random person? And then like later on finding out more about her, I'm like,
Mhm.
it seems kind of off. Like she would be more like manipulating stuff to favor her a little bit more. Like I don't, did you feel like her
Well,
characterization was a
like
bit
the
off?
cabinet for Luthor's presidency was like stacked with like a who's who. So
Mhm.
like Pete Ross was his vice president for
Yeah,
starters.
Mhm.
I thought that was
Sam
weird.
Lane was on the cabinet. Sergeant Rock or General Rock was on like I think a Secretary of War. So it and Black Lightning was on his cabinet.
Yeah.
So like
Mhm.
the whole roster is who's who, and Amanda Waller, who was not as big of a deal at the time.
Mhm.
The Squad run of the 80s had long been past, and there wasn't a book in the late 90s, early 2000s that was the Suicide Squad. So like at this point, this was like the beginning of her reemergence into like the bigger DCU after a really important run that then had just sort of been quietly not part of this like particular snapshot of DC Comics. Um, so like including her and then having her sort of like start to amass her power yet again makes enough sense. Amanda Waller has also been characterized as
The devil.
more or less bad depending on the writer and the context and all that. I think that this is taking one where she's not as bad as some of the takes that we've seen more recently.
Would you think of her alignment, like if you're going to talk about like a D&D alignment as being like lawful
Lawful neutral.
good? I would say good
You
because
you think
like,
lawful good?
well, okay,
I mean,
so
like
in the
I and
same
I could I
way,
could see an argument for lawful good for her.
yeah,
Um, I just think she's way too willing to like cross lines in the name of the law. Um,
because
but
in the
go
same way
on.
that, oh God, what is the name of the guy from Hunchback of Notre Dame, the bad guy?
Um,
You,
Frollo?
yeah, in the way that like he is lawful good because it from his perspective, he's doing everything for what is right, what is good, and he's doing it like, within the confines of what is the law. And so like that would be like lawful good because it's not about like our perception, it's like their perception of like what is good, what is neutral, what is
I think that gets into a really difficult conversation
I'm
about
sorry.
like D&D alignments and in terms of like what's the greater good versus what's the personal like motivations of these things. Um, and I think there's a case to be made for also
Both.
that one. But I think that's also like a huge tangent that from where we go. But I do think that she sees that herself as being good and following the law. I think I do agree with you on that
Yeah.
side.
That's a hard one right there. Oof, oof. Because like she'll be like this, she'll be lawful good, and then sometimes she'll be straight up Satan. So I don't.
She's the devil
She
incarnate.
yeah, because oof, man, sometimes yeah, that chick is evil.
Yeah,
Oof.
definitely. And then also, I guess we can get into this. So, speaking of when I first saw the movie adaptation, one of the things that really bugged me at the end, Lex is much more of a joke, I feel like in this, epitomized by the ending where he's like, God bless America, God bless me, as he like gets thrown into the back of that squad car and gets like carted off. Like, did you guys feel like he was a little bit more of a joke in the movie versus in the comic?
Oh, I love that part.
I mean, he's got Clancy Brown voicing him, so it's hard to
Yeah,
really consider him a joke.
Yeah.
so good. Oh yeah, that. Oh, I love the ending. The ending of Lex when he's completely lost his mind. It's so great.
I guess he just feels less menacing
Yeah,
versus like the panels in the comic make him feel like
that
he's
that
crazy
was
and menacing.
that was my thing. It's like he was much more intimidating at the end of the comics. He's got this crazed look on his face, and he's like, talking about like there's a crisis. He's got like these glowing eyes and everything, and that like intimidating scene. And then you go to the movie where he's just getting thrown in the back of a car and being like, that whole little briefly comedic scene at the
Yeah,
end.
I certainly feel that the comic version has less to lose at the end of it all.
Hmm.
And so you could see it going much more erratically. It's
Hmm.
it's weird because like right after this, he would go into hiding, and while he's in hiding, simultaneously his alternate reality self from Earth 3, the Alexander Luthor would start acting as Luthor at this time,
Mhm.
and really sort of muddy the waters in terms of like how sane Lex Luthor is. Um, so yeah, I mean, he certainly comes off as like this is the crazy man that we can't trust uh in the comic more so than in the movie. And that might do more damage as a result. It's also the Lex Luthor who has a history of doing a lot of damage and getting away with it up until this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like in the comics, he isn't officially a bad guy. Like no one really knew about like him being a bad guy. The worst he did was that when his body was degenerating after being cloned and transferred brains and yada yada yada, uh, he like caused a bunch of destruction in Metropolis. But I don't even think he got really like pinned for it. And certainly. Like his general reputation was like pretty positive in the DCU at this point. Like heroes knew that he was a bad guy, uh journalists knew that he was a bad guy, but like the man on the street like thought that Lex Luthor was kind of like a philanthropist.
Hmm. It's like some real life parallels there too for
Yeah.
people that aren't in the know. Huh. Interesting. But yeah, go ahead.
Sorry.
You were gonna say something?
No.
Okay.
No.
So yeah, like I said, I do think there's something lost without the voiceover, but I guess like I've kind of concluded all my thoughts on it. Did you have any more thoughts or anything you wanted to go over that maybe we missed along the way? Guys, any other
I
things
do have
maybe?
one point though. I do
Gotcha.
have
Okay.
one question I have to ask.
Okay.
Did the ending of the movie affect you guys more than the ending of the comic, i.e., Captain Adam taking the fatal
Mhm.
blow over Batman jumping in the ship and taking off and then being rescued at the end? So like for me, I prefer the movie one because we get that awesome speech with like when Superman is fighting Lex in the hangar where he's like, "That's my best friend, and
Mhm.
you just killed him." But in the
Yeah.
comic, we get like the whole like this is Captain Adam signing off moment.
Yeah.
I
Oh, go ahead.
oh I preferred the comic. I think that having a character die and like having more stakes is always gonna be like have a more dramatic effect. And I think that in the comic you kind of had like the solidity of like the fact that they're best friends and the fact that it's like, a buddy show or like a buddy run.
A buddy cop thing,
Yeah.
basically,
Yeah.
for lack of a better
Like
term.
very ingrained in it throughout. Um, where like I was making jokes watching the movie about how like the initial like fight scene where like they were in the graveyard just came off very homoerotic.
Yes.
But like
You know, my
um
wife was making the exact same joke.
is she
And
is she also bi?
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Same.
look, there is certainly going to be homoerotic jokes just because it's a bromance.
Yeah.
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 Uh, and the best written one is going to verge on that pretty closely.
Um but yeah, so I thought it was more impactful, but I can definitely see like why like Superman's speech and he's like, "That's my best friend and you just killed him," would like make you emotional, especially if you are like more attached to the characters.
Hmm.
Um, like I am at my heart, I'm a Marvel girl. I'm a Gambit girly. Um,
Hey.
our local comic book shop, like he pulls like comics aside for me, and he's been pulling aside any like cover for Uncanny X-Men that features Gambit and just like pulling it aside for me. So when I go to pick them up, he's just like, "I have all your Gambit stuff. Here's a free Gambit poster." And I'm just like, "You're the best. I love you." Um,
It's funny.
but um, but yeah, no. So I think that when you're more attached to the characters, and you have like a lot more emotional investment, then it would probably feel more emotionally fulfilling to have it where it's those two who are like, making the big risks and, getting saved in the end versus, Captain Adam like dying.
Yeah, Captain Adam, I liked that a little bit more because there's a little bit more like there's a cost to it in the comic. And I know like you're following Batman and Superman in the movie much more, so it makes a little bit more sense that it would be Batman up there. But like I do like the whole aspect of like him going up there making the sacrifice, kind of just being like, look, I'm doing the right thing and trying to make up for basically like his role maybe in certain things. And so like I do like that redemption of him and everything. And also I don't know about you guys. I know Case, you obviously know a lot more about like DC Comics. And this joke has been made before. Is Captain Adam's thing just like blowing up or like, getting blown up?
I mean, kind of at this point. Like that's what he's especially known for, because of big plot points of things like Kingdom Come or in like Justice League Unlimited. And also his whole future or his whole original origin of being like someone from the 50s who was then rocketed into the future because of his powers being manifested. So yeah, kind of he's known for blowing up and like showing up in weird spaces. If I remember correctly, this is the time where he blows up and shows up in the Wildstorm universe for about a year. Um,
What?
I think is what happens when he gets blown up at the end of this particular one. So yeah, it's kind of his thing. Yeah, that's to answer your question. Yes, yeah, it is his thing. Um,
He's the Dr. Manhattan parallel. I feel like Dr. Manhattan might be a little bit cooler than him. Captain
well,
Adam's
it depends on the
yeah.
run. Like when he's had
Yeah.
his own book, he's been allowed to
Mhm.
be really cool.
Okay.
But usually when he is not the main character, he's positioned as this sort of uh, you know, stooge of the government who is at odds with the hero. He's the by the book one
Mhm.
in this scenario, which is fine and it's a necessary role, but it makes it difficult necessarily for him to be as dynamic and cool. And so I do think like his death scene in this is really well written. I think that
Mhm.
his
Yeah.
internal monologue is really good. Like Jeff Loeb is not a bad writer. Like he did Superman for All Seasons, which is a fantastic Superman
Oh,
book
good.
that is extremely introspective.
Mhm.
It's just that when like that the pacing of this book in particular, I think is a little off. I think it should be tighter, and I think that they don't spend enough time on some scenes, but they spend way too much time on plenty of other things. And I think it should have been 4 issues instead of 6.
That's fair.
And I think that the movie
Yeah.
is addressing some of that, but part of that is also the shift in medium. Like the voiceovers wasn't going to translate like that in
Yeah.
terms of making that into a movie. So I think they did their best, and they went it's very tight, and I think they do a really good job with it all. Um, it's just that it's two different formats, and I think that they have the benefit of being the second product with it. I think that there should be a third, which would be like really amazing. I don't know what that would be, if it would be another adaptation or just like
What?
doing this
A
comic
big
again.
screen blockbuster movie.
Novelization.
Yes, yeah, something like that.
But yeah, cool. So yeah. So good having you guys on.
Like their socials?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Oh,
I'll give you guys time now to plug your socials and everything, and then I'll plug my socials, and then we'll just wrap this whole thing up.
All right, J Mike, you go.
Oh gosh. I am on Twitter at jmichael101 occasionally, but I am also, okay, look, check this out. I'm also on Blue Sky. Woo! At j5-bluesky social.com or whatever it's called. So you can find me there too. I'm on two places now. Woo!
Nice.
As for me, you can find me on Twitter and most of the socials at Case Aiken, except for Instagram, where I'm holding on to my AIM screen name for dear life, where you can find me at Quetzalcoatl5, because I was pretentious in high school and also wasn't really concerned if people knew how to spell my AIM screen name. So there you go. But you can find both of our stuff at the Men of Steel podcast, which is part of the Certain POV podcast network. So check out certainpov.com and you can find tons of great shows on our network. But Men of Steel is one of them. Another Pass is another one, which is a movie analysis show. But check those out. They're really fun. We've been doing Men of Steel for like 6 years now, something like that. It's
Nice.
which is getting kind of crazy. And it's been a lot of fun just like gushing about Superman stuff. So if you enjoyed listening to us make noise on this podcast, check that podcast out too.
All right. So for us, I'm Alex. This is Amanda. We have this show obviously together, Night of the Batman. It's a rebooted version of one of the first kind of shows I did like this back on YouTube, where it's called Night of the Batman, where I actually started out reviewing the Batman animated series for a few episodes, and then I think I quickly pivoted. Anyway, though, what about your show?
It's my show.
Yeah, she'll claim it as her show. But anyway, so I also have Flashbacks, a Flash rewatch podcast where we watch the Flash episode by episode. Right now we're getting close to the end of season one. It's a slow moving process, but we will get there. We started it last year. I promise we're gonna get to it by the end of the year. Anyway, and then I also have Tangential Exchange. That's our loosest show where me and my best friend um drink and try to stay on topic, and every time we go off topic we drink more, so like you can kind of imagine what kind of show that turns into. We're just trying to make each other laugh basically. And then I have What Mean, which is the original flagship review show, which is much more broad and general. I will bring that back eventually, and that's it. You can tell I have a lot of podcasts, clearly, and not a lot of time. So yeah. So again, it was great having you guys on. Definitely check out their stuff. I know I will be soon. And yeah, so we have this thing that we do at the end of every episode where we don't have a catchphrase, but our catchphrase is kind of
We'll
like,
come up with an outro eventually.
yeah, so if you guys want to join us in saying we'll come up with an outro eventually, we can all try to say it together through the magic of Zoom, maybe. We'll see if it lines up, but I'll give you guys a countdown.
Okay.
Okay. Three, two, one. We
We'll
will
come
up
up
with an
with an
outro
outro
eventually.
Nice.
You know what's amazing is with editing, that'll
Yes.
work out just fine.